Welcome, everybody, to another powerful episode of the Profits for Sanity podcast. I'm your host, Dominic Caminata, CEO of Grosso University, the industry-leading training and consulting group. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to have a very special guest who's an absolute powerhouse business leader who's becoming very well known in the home improvement and home services industry, and her name is Natalie Dawson. Natalie is the president and co-founder of Cardone Ventures, and she has grown to become not only an incredible leadership expert, but also a best-selling author, and as I personally got to witness, a phenomenal public speaker. I had the honor of watching her speak at the 10X Business Summit down in Miami, Florida, and I was immediately impressed with her confidence on stage, her knowledge, her clarity of communication, and her stage presence. So Natalie helped scale Cardone Ventures to over $150 million in revenue by focusing on a very important core principle, aligning people with purpose. So Natalie specializes in building high-performance teams, driving cultural alignment, and developing systems that turn hiring into a profit-driving machine. And that's something that's sweet music to our ears here on the Profits for Sanity podcast. Through her several best-selling books, her workshops, and her hundreds of episodes of her podcast, she's literally helped thousands of business owners grow by getting the right people in the right seats, and more importantly, learning how to keep them there. So we're absolutely honored to have her on the show. And Natalie, again, I just want to thank you so much, as we know your time is very valuable. And welcome to the Profits for Sanity podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. What an introduction. I'm excited to be on this show. I'm excited to give people lots of value, talk about all things related to hiring, recruiting, firing. It's something that I'm really passionate about and spend a lot of time thinking about, creating solutions around. So this is just nothing that I could be doing that's better than this.
And that's why your speech really resonated with me. So I work with owners and business leaders all over this industry. And it's kind of like a broken record right now where people are having a really difficult time finding and recruiting and keeping quality talent. And so when I was hearing you speak about your strategies for bringing people on, your 3-step interview process, just everything you brought to the table, I'm like, our audience would really value hearing this information. And I just want to thank you once again for sharing. So, of course, as I mentioned in my little intro, you're becoming very well known in the home improvement and home services industry, and Cardone Ventures is really just taken the industry by storm in a big way. But those of our audience who don't know much about your background and kind of how you got involved with 10X, can you share kind of your early career and what specifically attracted you to this 10X movement?
For sure. Well, I picked up my first business book when I was 12 years old. It was called The Starbucks Experience. My brother had the fun time of being able to play basketball, and my parents really cared about him going to basketball practice. And during his basketball practice, I would go to Barnes and Nobles and just read books. And so I picked up this Starbucks Experience book because I liked the logo of Starbucks and thought, oh, this is interesting. And that was really the first time I got curious about business and marketing. And from there, my parents being small business owners, I just started to pay more attention to how businesses get attention and what the right businesses do that create communities versus ones that fail and don't end up succeeding. And from that point forward, I really got interested in management consulting and started in management consulting when I was 20 years old. That was fun. I thought I knew a lot and turned out that I did not know very much, and was really reminded of that when I actually had my first set of team members report to me when I was 23 years old. They were older than I was. They were more experienced than I was. And it was a really rude awakening that I had learned a lot of theories and I'd read a lot of books, more books than most people read on this topic because I'm interested in it. But I realized I didn't actually have the tools to be able to apply great leadership principles. I had concepts and theories. And from that point forward, I really decided to make this people piece my focus and to spend time really understanding core philosophies around organizational development, core philosophies around leadership. And my husband sold his business when I was 25 years old. And for 2 years, we were trying to figure out what do we want to do for the rest of our lives because he was out of his previous organization. I was figuring out what I wanted to do with being recently engaged, going through what is most people's midlife crisis at 25. And I stumbled upon Grant Cardone, and I first could not stand his YouTube videos. I thought this guy is so arrogant. He is so cocky. And by the grace of God, Elena Cardone's content was shared with me through the YouTube algorithm. And I instantly fell in love with Elena and thought these are going to be our best friends. And what we do with small businesses, they don't currently offer to their ecosystem. And so we joined a 10X event in 2019 called 10X Growth Conference. And there were 35,000 people in this room. And for the very first time in my career, I felt like I was at home with a group of people who were uncomfortable and not satisfied with what they had created and were really chasing after their potential. That really is the ethos of this 10X movement. And so we pitched Grant and Elena on becoming business partners, starting this company called Cardone Ventures. And here we are 6 years later with hundreds and hundreds of team members and really making quite an impact on small business through helping business owners be more equipped to grow and scale.
So I love a lot of the stuff that you share there. An incredible story. And again, congratulations and all that. I've been watching some of the content you have on YouTube, which, by the way, even the free stuff that you serve up on YouTube, if people just go watch Natalie Dawson's YouTube videos and really take note, you literally lay out the roadmap for how to become successful very quickly on YouTube for free. You talk about, okay, figure out who are those people that are currently living the life that I want to live, or like living the lifestyle that I want for myself, and intentionally put yourself in places and positions where those people are. And this is a great story of that. You literally went to where, Grant and Elena were going to be, and you made it a point for them to get to know you and have a conversation. And here we are, like, willing this into reality. So it's just a very powerful story. Make your mentors your friends and your friends your mentors. It's crazy that still to this day, people are afraid, or maybe they're too shy, or they just don't believe in themselves enough to go out and seek mentorship. The good thing about the home improvement industry, I find the most successful business owners that I've ever met are very selfless as well. They love sharing, they love helping, they love being mentors to others. One thing I take away from the story that everyone on this podcast is watching, that should be doing, is you need to go attend events. You need to be where these people are. You need to shake hands and network. And that's what I was really impressed with at this 10X Growth Conference. Everybody is like pumped up. They got a 10X mindset. All the speakers, by the way, like super dynamic, high energy. Everybody's ready to shatter through any particular ceiling or wall they had in front of them to achieve the next goal for themselves. And me personally, as an entrepreneur and business owner coming home from this event, I'm immediately ready. Like, how am I going to 10X? How am I going to get to that next level? So I love that story, and the fact that he sold out a stadium. I mean, you had to be skeptical, right? Like, there's no way this guy's going to sell out an entire stadium for a business conference. And wasn't it like during the Super Bowl or something like that?
It sure was. It was Super Bowl weekend in Miami, 3 days. And the Marlins Stadium actually told him after the fact that nobody's been able to keep an audience like he has. Because think about it, most sporting events or concerts, they're there for a handful of hours. You don't have a stadium that's packed, every single seat taken for 3 days straight, where people are learning and bettering themselves. And, what's so crazy about what we do is we're products of our product. And it creates such a high level of accountability because it's easy. And where I find most people honestly haven't been successful doing what I do is they just talk about how to hire people, or they talk about how to onboard them, or they talk about how to train them. And they come up with these like gimmicks or these interesting ways that, you can kind of hack a system. And hacking a system might get you some revenue. It might get you some credibility, but if you're not actually in the game, the tactics become outdated. And what's so cool about what we do is we're hiring from the same talent pool. Cardone Ventures owns 2 different HVAC businesses. So like my team is recruiting for technicians right now. My team is going up against these same exact factors, economic factors, financial factors, political factors that all other small businesses are going up against. And so it makes us practitioners of what we do. And we're not fake people. So if you meet us at an event, you meet one of our clients, you meet one of our team members, we have to actually walk the talk because we're not fake people. It's not behind some like glass wall that, nobody can touch. You could talk to any of our team members who are at these events. Oh, how did Cardone Ventures onboard you? Okay, well, there's a 4-week training program and there's corporate onboarding versus role onboarding. Oh, what was the interview process like? Well, there were 3 steps. Like there has to be this piece of what we do, this practical piece of what we do, this application, in order for us to actually do what we do, which creates just a high level of accountability and makes me want to continue to be really great at what we do.
Yeah, you truly are changing a lot of lives, and that was evident, based on the people sharing their success stories at the 10X conference. And it seems to be like a very results-driven endeavor. Ultimately, what is going to generate the best results for our clients, and that's what we focus on. Now, some people may have been following Grant Cardone for many years, and a lot of people know him as like a sales and marketing guru. So can you share more specifically the features, the services that Cardone Ventures really plugs into this 10X movement, where it really comes full circle now, where business owners not only have that sales and marketing piece, but everything they really need in terms of structuring their business from top to bottom?
Yeah, we don't work with business owners that aren't doing at least $1 million in annual revenue. And the reason for that is there's a whole slew of things that you have to learn outside of just sales and marketing to get past $1 million in revenue. And Grant has a phenomenal system for sales and marketing. There's nobody better to train a sales team. There's nobody better to fill up a funnel and to create cold traffic and convert them into warm traffic. But everything outside of acquiring a customer was not something that they were doing. And that's what we do. So how do you operationalize a business? I actually just hopped off stage because we have an operations essentials workshop that's happening downstairs in our Scottsdale facility. I have 150 business owners downstairs who are learning how to set weekly metrics, daily metrics, how to schedule emails, how to ensure that their calendars are optimized, how to duplicate themselves, create processes and systems. So it's all of the things that are required outside of the customer-facing components that we help business owners do, which we like to define as the difference between creating scale in a business versus scaling a business. If you are able to have $1 million business, we already know that you have a product, you have a service, you're communicating with your target market in a way where you're getting their attention and they're converting with you. But can you do what you're doing and take that to 10 million? Most businesses can't. And they actually fail while they're trying to do that. So one of our missions is to reduce the amount of overarching business failure rates in the United States of America by being able to equip small business owners with the tools, knowledge, education that they need to be successful.
Yeah, because I heard you and Brandon talk a lot about 97% of small businesses fail. Even if you look at the data, technically it doesn't say 97%, but everyone has a different definition of failure. If you're just a one-man operation, you never really grow and scale, and you're barely living paycheck to paycheck, that's not really a success story. So they're technically a failure. And so those companies that have a product that they can sell and they're starting to get some of that foundation established, you recommend that they all jump into what you call 10X 360. And that's really like a good starting point. Can you just share briefly why that's like where you want people to start and kind of what the goal is, the mission for these businesses to get that foundation to scale?
Sales and marketing gets you your customers. But if you are $1 million business owner and you want to go to $10 million, you have to know what a $10 million business owner knows about running a business. So that is a full perspective of your organization, not you as the business owner, just focusing on customer, client, patient acquisition. And so this 360 perspective, sure, we do touch on marketing and sales because of course that is a key component to going from generating $1 million of revenue to 10 million of revenue. But there are additional components to that, such as reviewing your financials. What statements are you reviewing? Are you reviewing your statement of cash flows? Are you properly categorizing things? Is your chart of accounts and your P&L properly organized? If you don't know that, it's going to be next to impossible for you to also align your team members with the correct incentives because you won't have the framework to know what incentives are or aren't working because you won't be looking at your financials. And so when you start to really break down a business, all of these components are connected, but people think of them as being in silos. People think, oh, I need to understand accounting. Oh, I need to understand recruiting. Well, accounting touches recruiting in the same way that operations touches marketing, which touches sales. And so we like to reframe this concept of growing a business and really scaling a business to a 360-degree perspective, because as a business owner, you have to take responsibility for the entire look in your business, not just one single component that maybe you're good at. Maybe you're great with your customers. Your customers love you. Cool. That is one very small slice of this entire picture.
It's reassuring working with someone like you and your husband because you both successfully built and sold a business for an unprecedented multiplier. Do you mind sharing that success story, because that's what's, really intriguing is like where you're walking in through, what does 10 million look like? What does 20 million look like? This is not theory based. This is actually like, this is what you're going to need in order to get there. It's really non-negotiable. It's like, you have to have this system, this process. You have to do things a certain way to scale properly. But you mind sharing like your success story? I think this is when you were 25, you said?
Brandon sold the business. It's called Audigy Group in 2019. So I was 25 back then, and I had worked in the business starting when I was 20. He started the business in 2004. And what was really brilliant about that business is a small business owner in the audiology space, which I didn't know what the audiology space is. So I feel like I always have to define this for anybody. Audiologists are people who fit hearing aids and test people's hearing to allow them to hear in different environments and program the right hearing aids so that they can actually hear correctly. And so these audiologists, these small business owners across America would join this company called Audigy Group. And in exchange for joining Audigy, the business owner would use the hearing contracts that Audigy had, but then they would get access to all of these small business consultative services, such as finance, marketing, operations, leadership, professional development, training. And so through that process, they would also be able to get equity in this business. And they had earmarked up to 35% of the core company to go to and to give to these small business owners. So I like to think of my parents. Both of them were small business owners. Both of them were doctors. I can't imagine if my parents, if their business was making $500,000, they are able to join this company where what they are already doing is now paid for just through them purchasing through this company their supplies. And on top of that, they get all of this training and development. And this company sells for 77 times earnings, $155 million. And as a small business owner, I get a piece of that because I joined this company. And so Brandon made millionaires through this process and also taught them how to scale and grow their business to where they were the top performing audiologists around the country. And what that does is it gives us this vantage point of what works across an industry and how do you look at and really study what's working in an industry. But also we've done this in other management companies where we can see what works in audiology versus what works in plumbing versus what works in chiropractic. Like the idea that business is industry specific and that solutions is industry specific really it's a fallacy. The core of how you run a business, after I've now worked with thousands of businesses, there are key principles, which the 10X 360 is what we go through. There are key principles that if you get 80% of these things right, 20% of the nuance can be in that industry. Okay, cool. I don't debate that. But 80% of all business activities, decision-making, the way that the owner shows up, it is all consistent.
Our Spanish training director, Wendy Harmeyer, of course, adores you, admires you, looks very highly up to you as a mentor. She's a client of yours and Brandon's, and she wanted me to say hi. She is just, when she talks to you or when she sees you present, she's just in awe, and she's like, that girl is a powerhouse.
I wasn't always like this, and I think I do people a disservice because today I am, I'm funny and I'm quirky in my own presentation style. Obviously, you heard me speak at the summit. Yeah. I'm myself, but I was not always this person. I was not always a confident person. What created confidence in my ability to have somebody like Wendy enjoy speaking with me is the skill sets that I've gained over years of trying to be somebody that I wasn't at that moment. And the process as a business owner of really saying, I'm not okay with myself and the fact that I have $1 million business because I know I could hire more people and I know I could service more clients and I can beat my competition, not because I'm just trying to beat them, but because I actually provide a better service than my competition does. Not like holding that goal and holding that version and that vision of yourself to be the thing that drives you and creates motivation is what makes it so that at some point you have accomplished things to where people are like, wow, that's so cool that she's done that. And I want to say hi to her, but it was not always like this. And it was not that long ago that it was not like this because I didn't do what was required. And there are very few things that people have to do that like are really that challenging to be successful. It is just the consistency of showing up and not giving up on this future version of you and what your life really could look like if you just went all in on yourself and your goals.
Yeah, and I like a lot of what you talk about, just not getting comfortable. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. You got to put yourself in discomfortable situations because that's where the really growth and development occurs. And I try to do stuff in my life to challenge myself and get uncomfortable, not just in like personal interaction and business, but sometimes even physically. Like every now and then I'll just do something to challenge myself. Like last year I did a bodybuilding competition, even though I'm not a professional bodybuilder, but it's like, I found myself getting comfortable. It's like, I gotta have a goal. I gotta, stretch myself. I gotta do something different. And then this year I'm doing a boxing match. I've never boxed before in my life, but November 1st of this year, I'm gonna be competing in a ring boxing because it's like, I need to challenge myself in new and different ways. And then like putting yourself in front of these people that in the present, maybe they don't know you yet, and maybe they're not your friend, or maybe in a way they've kind of achieved greatness beyond what we can comprehend at the time. But the more you start associating yourself and putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations over time, you end up becoming that, So it's absolutely amazing. And at the conference, you talk a lot about people alignment, right? So you gave a masterful presentation on people alignment. I took a lot of notes here. But do you mind just defining what you mean by people alignment and why that's so important, the definition of people alignment in business?
Yeah, I would define people alignment as the process that a business uses to establish the business goal and align the incentives and the activities of every single person that works inside that business to hit that goal. So it requires the business owner, first and foremost, saying, I have a direction. I am confident that this is where we're moving to. This is what I'm willing to do in order to make this vision a reality, and being really believable in how they view the world and how they view the future of their business. And then it's the process of, what do I have to do to take this thing that doesn't exist, that's in my brain, that's a goal for me to have this larger business that services more people, and how do I have individual conversations with team members, with people who are interested in helping me. And when you boil it down to that, it becomes very clear and straightforward what business owners are supposed to be doing. But in the day-to-day, it's very easy to get confused, and people aren't aligned, and they think that they're just taking a job. And that's ultimately where a lot of the challenges come through running and owning a business.
Right. So if I'm an owner watching this and they're asking themselves, is my business aligned or is it misaligned? What are some of the common signs or symptoms of misalignment in a business where they can be like, okay, I check some of those boxes and maybe I need to subscribe to some of this training, coaching?
Well, the most obvious one is if your revenue isn't growing month over month and year over year, then there's misalignment in your business because it should be growing. There's no reason that your revenue shouldn't be growing. There's inflation, there's increase in taxes, there's insurance increases. Everything is becoming more expensive. So if your revenue isn't growing, at least to beat out the environmental factors, then you're actually in decline as a business. Yeah. And it's very easy to see that your team members aren't working on the right problems, and you as a business owner aren't working on the right problems if your business isn't growing. And it's pretty straightforward. It either is or it isn't.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think Brandon was up on stage talking about that, because you had the upward arrow, you're growing, and then you had the straight flat line, which is actually a decline, and then of course the obvious decline. A lot of people don't think of staying stagnant as a decline, but it makes all the sense in the world, because if you're staying the same and the rest of the world is just rapidly inflating in terms of the cost of everything, you are going backwards. It's a classic, if you ripe, you rot, you start to digress. Now you talk about an employee engagement equation. So you talk about transition, you talk about align, develop. Do you mind explaining kind of that the three-part employee engagement equation, why that's important?
Well, I finally got tired of feeling like I was getting sucker punched by my team members, where it just seemed like for the first handful of years of my career, there were these random, quote unquote, random things that were happening, where it was Bob had this issue where he would always show up late, or Sarah had this issue where she was a great hire and she had all the charisma but wasn't getting results. And it just seemed like everything that had to do with my team just didn't have a rhyme or reason until I sat back and thought, well, there is a cycle there. I can't just pretend like these are all just random things and my employees are happening to me. So I really took a step back and said, what are the characteristics of an aligned team? And what are all of the things that I can take responsibility for as a business owner to ensure that I did my part to align the right person. Now, there will always be incorrect people. There will always be lazy people. But if you are really willing to take responsibility, well, who hired them? Why did you let somebody come into your organization that was lazy to begin with? And how could you ask a better interview question? So if you're willing to take extreme accountability for your environment, you can put together this wheel, and I call it the employee engagement equation. And it starts with all of the things that you do to align your team members from the interview process all the way into onboarding. So every single touch point from the actual interview itself, from the job description online, from the offer letter, the negotiation, their first day, all the way through onboarding. Then the next phase is the development phase, which is everything between the 90 days of their onboarding up until the moment in which they transition. And transition can either look like they get a promotion, and then they start to align, and then they develop, and then they transition hopefully to a new role. So this cycle continues, or they transition out of the organization. And when you start to map your team today in these three different buckets, how many team members do you have in the alignment phase, meaning they're going through interview to onboarding? How many do you have that have been there for longer than 90 days, but don't have a clear promotion, or you're not going to fire them? And how many people are actually in the process of promotion versus being fired? You realize how many people are stuck in development. You just haven't promoted them. There's no picture, there's no future. And so my book, Teamwork, was written all about the specific touch points across each one of these three phases that, as a business owner, if you're willing to take extreme accountability for, you could actually create an environment that creates engaged employees instead of being victimized and feeling like you're sucker punched by your handful of team members that all have quote unquote random experiences, but really they aren't random. They're all within your control.
Yeah, Rick Grosso, my mentor. By the way, that's who I named my business after, is Rick Grosso. He's kind of like the Zig Ziglar of the home improvement industry for decades. But he had a quote he always shared with owners. He said, "You have the company you deserve." And a lot of owners didn't like to hear that, but it truly is a mere reflection of what you're doing and who you are and the decisions you're making. In this industry, I can tell you firsthand that most companies don't really have a real good structured and intentional process for how they bring people in, interview them, do a proper onboarding. And then even if they do, where companies really drop the ball is, okay, once I get them on, and most companies onboarding in this industry, we call it like a waterboarding, because they teach them sales, and they teach them product knowledge, and they teach them financing, and they teach them all this stuff within like 3 weeks. And it's just like overwhelming. And then they throw them out into the wild, and there's like almost no post-training molding support, ongoing education. There's no clear direction as to how to continue to grow in their profession. So, and this is why there's a lot of attrition. There's a lot of turnover, right? Because even if you gave the best training of all time, how much can someone possibly retain of that within the 2 to 3 week time frame, right? Or 4 weeks or whatever it is. So then you're doing them a disservice. They're getting thrown out there. Let's say I'm sales, I'm running leads, and I only have maybe 5 to 10% of the stuff I learned in class in my brain. You know, it's a recipe for failure. And they're wondering why they're constantly having to hire new salespeople or new marketing people over and over to the end of time. But it's a self-inflicted issue there. So that's why like having that structured process that you all teach and preach is so important. In this industry, it's badly needed, like so badly. This industry is very much like wild, wild west, shoot from the hip. You know, a lot of these guys, they maybe were an installer at one point or maybe a salesperson. So like, I can install a window or I can go and sell. So then they start a business. But beyond that, beyond their particular set of skills, they really have no idea where to go. And that's why it's so important to seek out companies like yourself and, of course, companies like what we bring to the table to get those systems and processes in place so you can attract the right people. So I'm sure you can agree to this. Like for me, even when I was interviewing what I would deem a top caliber sales professional, having the training book, having the online university, having a clear direction in terms of where we're going, how we're going to get there, having clear direction in terms of how they make money, how they're benchmarked and graded, roles and responsibilities, all those things to me made it easier for me to attract top quality talent because they want clear direction.
Yeah. And, you know, I would even suggest that's most businesses, right? The business owner starts the business because they're good at something. Mm-hmm. And because they're good at that thing, they leave the place that they were working prior to execute on that thing, but they don't really have the skills. They don't know why they are good at that thing. They just are. And so when it comes to actually developing other people, When it comes to duplicating themselves, they know what they can control, which is doing that thing, being the technician, being the person with the customers, being the best salesperson, right? Like they then actually start to have this very self-limiting belief that only they can do it because they were able to do it and they have this special way. So they have this secret sauce and they never actually spend any time trying to codify it, but then are equally just as disappointed when everybody disappoints them because they didn't actually codify it. They just thought, oh, you could watch me do it. And this 20 years of experience that I have is just going to be osmosisly delivered to somebody through 3 weeks of riding in my truck with them. And it's not how it works. It's not really what training and development is meant to do.
Yeah, I wanted to get your opinion on something. So at Grosso University, we have a definition of a salesperson, which we define a salesperson as an agent of influence that can influence other people in the direction which they want them to go. Because I do a lot of coaching with sales leaders and leaders of high performance teams. I'm like, as a leader, we're essentially trying to do the same thing. We're trying to influence people in the direction which we want them to go. So I modified it slightly. But I define a leader as an inspirational agent of influence that can navigate their team to a clearly defined destination. There's very few people that can really inspire anybody anymore and inspire people to want to be better. So that was like my goal when I would have a new batch of salespeople or new employees coming in. I want to get them to believe in themselves in ways that they maybe never have before. Get them to realize like you're twice as good as you think you are and that's only half the truth. Let's stretch ourselves because you've been lied to your whole life by saying that you're average. With that belief and that passion, it's transferable. And obviously through repetition, these people come out of your training and onboarding ready to run through walls and continue to grow and develop. To be inspirational though, you got to be inspired, which all going back, like you got to start hanging around with the right people. So how important is it in your life and in everyone's life that, we really got to start focusing on who we're spending our time with, like what information we're allowing to occupy our mind if we ever intend on moving forward in life?
I honestly think it's one of the most important things because if you don't have that environment around you where somebody is pushing on you or inspiring you to show you what else is possible or what's next, it's all freaking hard. I mean, what business owners put themselves through, the risk, the uncertainty, the level of work, the dedication, like Instagram and social media has made it seem so sexy and so fun to just be a business owner and to be an entrepreneur. It is problem after problem, and they are the hardest problems, and they are the problems nobody else can solve. It's not all of the great, wonderful things. In fact, you kind of have to remind yourself to celebrate the most wonderful things. We just had a huge win in our organization this week, and I just went straight in with our chief legal officer and our one-on-one 2 hours ago of like, here's all the things we have to go through. And it took me 20 minutes into this meeting to be like, wait, Natalie, this massive thing just happened. Like this thing that's changing the trajectory of our year. Like, did you even acknowledge it? And now all of a sudden I'm going to create on it and we're going to have a dinner and we're going to celebrate. But you're just so used to solving the most complex problems. And the only reason that you do this is because you believe that you're going to get somewhere on the other side of it. And that someplace has to be so much better than where you're at right now. And the worst part about having a $3 million business or a $5 million business is you remember what it was like to have a $100,000 business or a $500,000 business. And it just seems so much better. Like life, how could it get much better? Well, you start spending time with somebody who has a $50 million business or a $100 million business, and you watch them at a charity event be able to write $1 million check to something that really matters to you and that you would like to be able to contribute to, but you can't because of a $5 million business, you're not writing $1 million checks. And so this process of constantly being around people, especially if you're capable and you're able, you have to put yourself in a position where other people are doing bigger things, and you start to look at yourself as like, man, why are you so lazy? Because when that becomes the game, which is what is possible for you to create and contribute to, that is the most fun game that you can play. And more importantly, there is a world of people out there that are messed up and broken. And there are so many problems that capable people should be solving, could be solving if they just stayed solving them instead of getting distracted and not focused and thinking that they should give up because they have a nice $3 million business.
Excellent stuff. So I just want to go back to the recruiting here. And by the way, congrats again on all those big achievements. It just keeps going, keep rocking and rolling. What are some of the common mistakes you see people making when recruiting, in terms of attracting the wrong people or maybe not attracting anyone at all, whether it's posting on the wrong platforms or having the wrong message or call to action or the wrong comp plan? What are some of the common things you see where they're really never going to get anywhere doing what they're doing now?
I find that they don't even look at this problem. People are so easy, especially in the home services space. It's so easy to say there aren't any great technicians. There's nobody who wants to be a part of this industry. There's no skilled tradespeople any longer. And they love complaining about this problem. But when you actually ask, when is the last time you looked at your active job posts and actually looked online? What your company looks like online, what the job post says, how much salary is listed for. When's the last time you actually looked? Yeah. They've never looked. Somebody else is responsible for it. And the job post is absolutely horrendous. There's no photos. There's no storytelling. It's just a list of bulleted things that they copy and pasted from somebody else's website. Like they really haven't gone through the process of solving this problem. They just take the lazy approach and say, there's no great people. There's tons of great people who want to work for great companies. So how would I know that you are a great company? If I took that lens to your careers page, if I took that lens to your job post or your Indeed page or your ZipRecruiter page, how would I know that you're a great company? Do you tell that story? Are there pictures? Are there success stories? Are there ways that you're communicating to the person that you are trying to get to know you that you are the right place for them to work? Because if you aren't spending time solving this problem, of course it's going to be a problem. But you start to peel back the onion, and this is where it's like, I don't even take people seriously any longer when they tell me that they can't find any great people, because I know more about their careers page than they do, because they haven't looked at it in months, if ever, because somebody else is doing it for them. Somebody's delegated to, it's an office manager, it's a spouse. They don't really want to solve the problem. So I think the biggest mistake isn't actually like something technical, although there are a bunch of technical mistakes people make. It's more so there's zero obsession to actually solve the problem. It's a complaint. It's not a problem.
No, and you're living proof that there are a lot of high caliber people out there looking for opportunities. And it's evident when you go to a 10X event and you see this room full of killers that are ready to make things happen. And it's just incredible to see the caliber of professionals that you all have within your organization. Like, for example, Cardone Ventures, how many people have you built up to within, was it like 6 years?
Total in all of our companies, we have about 370 inside our Cardone Ventures corporate team. We're at 250 right now.
Yeah, so 250 people. And not that 100% of those people are going to be here 5-10 years from now, but what I see from attending your events is, these people are absolutely committed. It's like they all have that same eye of the tiger. You walk by, you see the room, you can see it in their eyes. They're like, it's like whatever the core values are, that vision that you transmit over, that belief, that onboarding and training. And one thing I loved hearing at this event is how training is not like a once a month or a once a week type of thing. We're every day, we're role playing, we're drilling, we're rehearsing, we're celebrating. You got all it's high energy and it's constant, never ending improvement. It's very inspiring to see that, and you're practicing what you're preaching. So it's not like you're just going to be talking to people about how to do these things and then behind the scenes you're doing something different, which also makes you way more qualified to give that advice, because look at what we've done with our business in a short period of time.
Like if we weren't there at events, if we weren't passionate, if we weren't answering questions and really participating in our business, of course, people aren't going to participate in our business with us. Our team isn't going to care more than we care. So we really care. And I know that translates to people. I think that's why we are successful, is because we have a deep passion for what we do, and people can feel that, they experience it. And it's not just our clients, it's also our team members.
Absolutely. You just mind briefly sharing your 3-step interview process? So obviously we don't have to go in depth on each step, but just why you have this 3-step process, and kind of what is the main goal here, and why is it so important that we do that to filter out disqualified applicants?
So I tried to make an interview process as streamlined as possible so that a business owner can actually assess correctly candidate A versus candidate B versus candidate C, which is the best candidate for my business. And the process is 3 steps. The first one is a behavioral interview where I'm understanding what the person's goals are, what their past experience is, ensuring that there's alignment with comp and incentive, and just honestly getting that behavioral touch point. Can this person execute on what I see this role being, and can they demonstrate that in the first conversation? From there, I move them into a technical interview, which is essentially how close can I get them to doing the work so I can see whether or not they possess the skills. Now, I do very much believe I would much rather hire somebody who is willing to do the work than who is skilled. Willingness versus skill all day, every day. But if I'm hiring somebody for $70,000 to do something and they can't do that thing, then I've made the wrong hire. So the second step has everything to do with the case study and ensuring that they can do the work. And the final step is the core values interview. We have 6 core values at our company, and it would make a lot of sense that we only hired people who have all of our core values. You can't just have 4 of our 6. You have to have all 6 of our core values, and you have to be able to present how you have demonstrated our core values in your work or in your life up until this point, so that we actually know that you don't just like these words, but you actually live these, because that's who we are.
One thing that was very inspiring, and by the way, like all this stuff, when you share the core values and you talk about culture, that's what I saw, a lot of when I was at the event. You could just tell that resonated to everybody. Everybody knew it, they felt it, they lived it, they eat, live, breathe, and sleep it. But that's something that I venture to guess a lot of people even watching this podcast in this industry, and you see it, obviously you're dealing with the same types of companies that we are. Like no core values, no vision, no mission, really no rhyme or reason. So nobody has any sense of like why we're doing what we're doing, what's the purpose, where are we going, why are we going there? So I think that's so important that we have that foundationally for our organization, so people can wake up feeling good, feeling important, and having some direction as to where we're taking this thing. Your content on YouTube, you have all kinds of free information that people can watch on how to become a millionaire, how to be, effective in sales, effective in marketing. Of course, this podcast is called Profits for Sanity. So what are some, some quick tips you would give business owners today? Like, if you want to be a more profitable business, this is what I would recommend you really start doing, whether it's start attending events, start educating yourself.
Yeah, and even the thought process of why does a business sell for a higher EBITDA multiple? It's like, if you think about what EBITDA is, it's earnings, before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization, but it's 1 year of earnings. So a business is being paid, let's say at a 10 multiple, that's 10 years of earnings in that 1 year versus 77 years of earnings for that 1 year, for that one transaction. So what would make a business that valuable? And as business owners start to ask themselves that question, it feels hard to wrap your brain around, but there are very specific things that create value in a business. And a lot of it does have to do with the people in the business and the processes in the business and the care in which the people take in the business. And so all of this, like hiring and recruiting, this is all very aligned to being able to grow a potential multiple, increase your multiple that you would be able to get at an acquisition. But when it comes to the tips, you said tips for success.
Profitability.
Well, the fastest way to increase your profit would be to just raise your prices. Like you could do that tomorrow. You raise your prices, you are instantly more profitable because your costs haven't gone up and you've just increased your prices. Yes. So in order for you to increase your prices, what additional value do you have to generate? What else are you giving your customers? We have a saying around here that I like your podcast title. It's something we kind of talk about internally of value is only an issue, or price is only an issue in the absence of value. And so profit is also only an issue to the extent that you don't know how to be more valuable. So what can you do with your clients that creates more value to where you can charge more, but doing nothing else besides adding more value? Like, what is that? Is it being able to detect a problem before they know that they have a problem? Is it being able to be the neighborhood contact so that everybody knows who they go to, that you show up within 15 minutes, you never have any, security issues, you're never delayed? Like there's a lot of things that you can provide as a guarantee as a business owner that add instant value. You may think it's obvious that all businesses do that, but very few do. And most customers are very used to, especially in the home services space, being disappointed and let down from the service. So put value on the service that you are providing to customers, and you will find that you can charge more and people will be willing to pay you because they know that they can count on you and they know that they can trust you, and your competition is not doing that.
So you have that side of it. And one thing I see all the time, companies that do have value, but they don't know how to communicate it compellingly to others. It's like, you realize how valuable what you offer is to the world? Like, nobody's doing what you're doing, and they're not even communicating that to their customers at all. Like, I'll do a training with a company, and I'll do a product demo of their product or service in front of their sales team. By the way, their sales team knows their product better than I do, but I know how to communicate the value compellingly to others. So it's just getting the necessary training and skills and communication. And then if there are those areas where you need more value, absolutely. We don't want to apologize for being more expensive. We want to brag about it, because we're not just trying to take the path of least resistance to undercut Chuck in a truck or Larry with a ladder, right? So we're here to give our customers a unique experience they can't get anywhere else. And that's one thing that we have the advantage of in this industry, is we're selling an unfinished good. We're selling something that's not even made yet. In most cases, we're selling a fantasy, right? It's not like you can buy the home improvement and drive it off the lot that day, like a car or something like that. The only thing that guarantees the end result and their satisfaction is, are we going to deliver on the promises we're making? But that gives salespeople a lot more opportunity to build that value and communicate that value, whether it's sales or marketing. And again, don't apologize. I agree with you 100%. That's the biggest thing I see with companies, is they sell themselves short. People love to buy for things they perceive as being a better quality, a better experience with a company that's going to take care of them and provide the service that they're claiming. So amazing. I just want to thank you so much for the conversation. Obviously, we could talk for hours. I see a lot of bad leadership out there. And I feel that a lot of the issues with companies, the fish stinks from the head down, right? So from leadership down. What's some of the best leadership advice you feel like you've ever received? I know it's hard. It's a tough question because there's so much of it out there, and I know you're very educated. You probably read, how many books on leadership. You've written some yourself. But what would you say is like some of the best leadership advice you've ever received?
I would say the best leadership advice comes from the first book I ever read on leadership, which was a John Maxwell book. And he says leadership is influence. And to the extent that you can influence people, you will be able to lead them. And in order to truly influence people, what I've learned from that, and he talks about, and my husband to me is still the ultimate leader, somebody that I look up to and am inspired by after working alongside him for over a decade. Are you really showing up in a way that makes other people inspired and want to be around you? And that bar all of a sudden becomes so high because every decision that you make every single day is either driving towards people should be influenced, or maybe they shouldn't be influenced because you're not making great decisions and you're not doing things that if you had 10 times more of that action, it would be a good thing. It would maybe actually hurt people. And so really just reminding myself, I continue to do this, that my ability to influence people is directly related to my leadership, which is directly correlated to every decision that I make every single day that is either building into that and something that I would want people to be influenced by, or something that I wouldn't want people to be influenced by, which means I'm not actually being a great leader.
Yeah, when you're in a leadership role, you're always on parade, right? So they're going to watch everything you do 24/7, 365, how you walk, how you talk, how you dress, how you communicate in and out of work. So it's definitely a lifestyle. You got to lead by example every step of the way. And you got to emulate those actions and behaviors that you're demanding from your team. It's always, our team's a mere reflection of who we are. So I really appreciate the conversation. So if people want to get in contact with Cardone Ventures and subscribe to some of your coaching and training, which I highly recommend, what's the best way to reach out to you?
I'm very active on Instagram. I respond to DMs and love connecting with people. So come to Natalie Dawson on Instagram and would love to connect.
So wow, another powerful episode of the Profits for Sanity podcast. Hopefully you took away some useful information to help you grow and scale a more profitable business, and of course, optimize that recruiting engine. Again, a special thanks to Natalie Dawson for her time. And in the world of business, as we always say, volume is for vanity and profit is for sanity. So thank you. We'll see you on the next one.